Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. When the slides come up, I'll show you just real briefly what All Kids Alliance is about. But to describe it for you, we're creating something that we call civic infrastructure supporting kids, region by region in 8 counties around Houston. What it means to create civic infrastructure is we set a leadership table of equal numbers of CEO level people from business and workforce, education, community nonprofits. And their initial task is to set a vision for the community and then establish outcomes that they want for kids. And our tagline is cradle to career. So the outcomes are, as they're developing community by community, we want all kids ready for school. We want all kids doing communication and math at a level to be ready for high school. We want all kids to graduate high school truly ready for anything they want to do after high school. We want all kids to enter a technical or a 2-year or a 4-year program, and we want them to complete it. That's the nature of the outcomes people are establishing. Once they've done that, we convene groups. We say, first of all, it's an elephant. Where do we take the first bite? How do we prioritize the outcomes? Having prioritized them, a community will pick 1 or 2 places to begin, and then we convene a new group of people who know where they want to begin. If they pick literacy, we have literacy people. If they pick mathematics and science, we have those folks from the community. And we introduce, for those of you with any kind of math, systematic background, we introduce an adaptation of Lean Six Sigma decision processing so that what comes out of that has a business plan, is scalable, with reasonable costs and sustainable, and coupled with indicators that will be monitored. So in real simple terms, that's what All Kids Alliance is about doing around the country. We're hosted at the University of Houston, but I say very quickly, first of all, we want wonderful support at the University of Houston, but it's not about 4-year degrees, and the earlier panel made that point. The workforce needs that we have are fundamentally to have more technical and 2-year applied program completers. So the fundamentals look like this as our Council of Executives have established them. We work with the whole community. That's the multi-sector groups around a decision table. What we're doing is now called Beyond Collaboration. It's called looking for collective impact. We use data. That's a principal a source of deciding on outcomes and looking at whether we're moving the needle, and we introduce a continuous improvement process. Now, all that is not directly relevant today, except that our story starts with the urgent problem that we have. And so I think this maybe is, Marshall, foundational for the rest of the comments. And you may know this story, but if you don't, here's the way it goes. Our students are not job ready in large part. If we look at post-secondary completion, these 2 lines say take in the year 2000, all of the 8th graders in the state of Texas, that's the blue line, and all of the 8th graders in Greater Houston. That's, we work in 8 counties, but these numbers represent 7 counties, or Region 4 Service Center area, 53 school districts. If we follow those students through and say who starts some kind of college, enrolls in a 1-year technical program, or a 2-year academic program, or a 4-year academic program, those are the numbers. 54% in the state of Texas, 59% in Greater Houston. As you can see, the difference between Texas and Greater Houston isn't where the story is. Now let me put this against a backdrop of the Lumina Foundation looking at industrialized countries and industrializing countries says 60% of our adult population needs to have some post-secondary credential, a certificate or a 2-year 4-degree. 60%. We're behind the 8 ball already. We don't even have 60% of our kids out of, given enough time after 8th grade, entering programs in the state of Texas. If we follow them and say who is completing their programs, the numbers are even more abysmal. 20% on average, and if you look at economically disadvantaged kids who are more than half of our population, the numbers are below 10%. Okay, do you see why we call this an urgent problem? Now, the story is, here's the story of the 2 economic, kind of dividing middle class from economically disadvantaged kids. Now we say, okay, what's the source of those low enrollment and low completion rates? And a lot of people focus on high school and say we got to get high school kids, maybe middle school kids ready. We say cradle to career is the answer. We have to work the entire pipeline. And to connect it to today, let me just suggest to you that in our work we see engineering, math, and science kind of related to technology. If we pull out engineering and with your approval change that to English language arts, because the foundation even of a lot of math learning is English language arts, we focus on those areas to establish the need for doing this work. In the way we talk about it, using standardized test scores, as incomplete as they are, the measures of total learning. But if we start with standardized test scores, which we can do, and at the state level, we ask two questions about those scores. How many of our kids are passing according to our state standards and definitions of passing? Under the old system, educators, everybody else excuse me, but I'll talk to the educators, we're talking the old system is TAKS, and passing was called Met Standard, right? The new system, STAR, is level 2. If we ask a different question and say, okay, passing, but what about more advanced performance that one could call really ready? Under TAKS, it would be something closer to commended, and on STAR, it's something closer to level 3. And why, let me pause. Why do we know that's closer to readiness? Because lots of kids pass everything, get their high school diploma, and have to do remedial work at UH or at Lone Star College or HCC, okay? Simple truth. All right, so we asked this question, and here's what things look like. If we start in English language arts, which would be reading, basically, that blue line way out to the right side shows our numbers the last round of TAKS testing. So these are 2 years old. But we would have a lot to brag about if we just cared about passing, because we're above 90%, and the numbers have gone up every year. Wonderful story there. But look at the real story about readiness. Fewer than 50% of our kids, grade by grade by grade, are scoring in state tests at a level that says they're really ready for the next grade. And the trend line goes down over time. We think the only reason that 11th grade line, the gold line is sticking out there where it is because under TAKS that was a high stakes test, and a lot of kids had already dropped out by that time. All right? Now, just to brighten you up about the other subject areas, here's what the story is in math. Those are readiness levels in math testing in Greater Houston over the years the test was given. And in science, the bottom says 20% of our kids are arguably, 20% of the kids still in school are arguably ready for college level science work. All right, that's where we start our discussion to establish the urgency in the work and relate it to STEM. And as I said, in working with communities, developing first a leadership table that prioritizes the areas to work on, we say, think cradle to career. Now, we don't start all the way across that pipeline. We have them start 1 or 2 places. It's a very long-term effort, but we said it was a long-term getting here. It'll be a long-term out, but what we must get that we're not getting is scalable change and sustainable change. We have at our advisory table many of the folks from the STEM areas, Centerpoint, Chevron, to name 2. Our current leader of our council is a retired Shell Gas and Power executive named Gus Nugent. Joni sits at our table and has given us wonderful support. That's who's supporting All Kids Alliance, and we work as a hub and spoke. So we develop community by community by community these efforts around raising the prospects for our kids. We're in 8 counties, currently engaged in 8 separate communities, and I think when we build this out totally, we'll probably have 17 or 18 what we call regional partners doing this work. I invite you to look at our website if you'd like to know more about us, but STEM is at the heart of what we're doing, as you can see, and we would start the discussion by saying, how are kids doing in communications and math and science from preschool onward?